The reason we allowed the Chapmans to go up first because there's a policy that there's beauty before age. Age before beauty.
Put the pressure on it. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, we're not going to go into the detail of the family history the same as George, because we have a collage of pictures and we're going to just talk on the pictures, and that's what it's not going to be too boring for you, I hope. But we start off with Alfred Vialoux, and he was the husband of Kate, and Kate left Alfred in England, and she came across with Home Popham child, the child Home Popham, and the other child Harry, and Montague was already here working, and they came and they kind of settled in with the Hall family in Headingley. And then the Hermitage is in Headingley, and the Hall family is very connected to our family because Helen Vialoux was a Hall. And here we have Matilda and W.B. Hall. That is the parents of the Hall, the Hermitage, and that's the parents of my grandmother. And there's a good picture of the Hermitage, which was very renowned in Headingley. It was a gathering place for a lot of social events, and he was a very famous horticulturist, and he went into fruits, and he was very famous for fruit growing in Manitoba. And there's another one of the horticulture and the garden. And there was Mina at the Hermitage homestead. There's Mina with her children. That was a daughter. And there's a famous family photo that you have probably seen an awful lot because that picture is used a lot. And you can see there's Mina Hall, and there's Helen Hall, Matilda Hall, W.B. Hall, and other people. But there's a strong contingent of the Hall family there. They're the Holy Trinity Anglican Church, which the Hall family were members of. Helen married Montague in that church. And there's a picture up opposite the Hermitage, and then there's one of the riverboats, which was very common at the Hermitage in those days. There's William Benjamin and Matilda again, and she was a Talbot, and she was a Talbot, and the Talbot family was very famous in Ontario, and it was at the Talbot Settlement, which is now London, Ontario, and also Talbot Street in Winnipeg is named after her sister. Her sister was a teacher in East Kildonan and a principal, and they named the street after her. And there's also Hall Street in Headingley, and there's also Vialoux Drive in Charleswood, and I'm trying to get the mayor of Winnipeg to give me 10 cents for every car that goes down one of our streets. There was 9 children born, 6 lived, and one was very, very sad in the fire. And there's W.C. Hall. Now, W.C. Hall was one of the sons of William Benjamin, and W.C. was in that picture that George pointed out the first council. W.C. was the one that is on the left side sitting down with Mr. Chapman. So I'm sure glad that he brought that up. The Hermitage family was very strong in the neighborhood. There's after W.C. died, and there's a picture there with Mrs. Hall in the background in that family picture. and that is in 1913, and she died in 1913. There's more on the social side of the Hermitage. And then the Vialoux family joins the Hermitage, and there is Montague with his mother Kate, who was a Popham, and his wife Helen Vialoux, our grandmother. We never did meet Montague because he passed away before any of us were born. And there's Matilda Hall years later. She lived at LittleCote on Vialoux Drive. She lived there with her family. Now there's a picture of the same picture that George was showing you, and that is W.C. Hall on the left side. There is the original LittleCote that they built in Charleswood. That is Montague and Helen Vialoux standing there, and that's 1909. And it was 5 years later, that house burnt, caught on fire, and the little girl was she was burnt in the house. And she is buried on the property right now. Yeah, and there's a fire, the W.C. Hall, the Hermitage. There was another fire there, and they lost some lives there. And there's the newspaper articles claiming about the fire. So we had a fire at the Hermitage, and we had a fire at LittleCote. And my father went up to Bassett, and we were raised up there, and that house burnt too. So all of the houses have burnt, and we're lucky we have any history at all, because it all got burnt. And after the fire, they moved this house here across the river on the property, and Mary Jones and her daughter Wilma stayed, and they stayed in that house for, I think it was a couple of years, and then they moved out of there, and she went to Winnipeg and ran a boarding house. Yeah, and there's Wilma Sutherland with her kids there, and there is myself in there, and my brother Bill, and my brother Jim, and there is Bobby Vialoux, and Joanne Vialoux, and Wilma and her kids. That's part of Charleswood. That's the old house that burnt, and that's a picture of it, and it was April the 20th, 1915, that house perished. And Helen had already moved to LittleCote by the time of the Hermitage fire, and she met Montague at the Hermitage, and she did some writing for the Winnipeg Free Press, and I'm still trying to get some of her articles. I've got some of them, but I still haven't picked up the rest. And she was very, very involved with her family. There she is with Ernie and Talbot, my father. You see, there's a lot of family names. Like I'm Montague also, and my father was Talbot from the Talbot side, and so they try to keep family in all the names. Okay, here's Home Popham Vialoux, who was the brother of my grandfather Montague, and Home Popham is a famous admiral in the 1600s in the English Navy, and I have a book on the table there called A Damn Cunning Fellow, and they wrote a book about Home Popham the admiral, and he is named after the admiral, and that's his mother Kate. And there's the little baby Catherine, Mary Catherine, that died in the fire in 1915. And that's the house they rebuilt, and it's called LittleCote again. And LittleCote comes from England, because that's where our family moved to after the French Huguenot rebellion in France, and they went to England, and all our relations are of English origin now. In fact, with a name like we have, and none of us can speak a word of French, people find it very surprising. Okay, there's life on the LittleCote with the families. Oh, there's interesting, that one there with Granny and Grandpa dressed up like Jill and Jack. That sign that's behind them on the house is on display at the table here. We still have it. It's a handmade sign, and it's very interesting. It was punched out with punching. But Grandpa Vialoux, he had rheumatoid arthritis, and he was badly crippled up, and that's what finally killed him. And we still have a copy of the story he wrote on his deathbed on what it feels like to be sitting and passing away. And he and at Bessie's funeral, I read that same story that he wrote at the funeral, and the minister was so impressed he had to have a copy of it. Yeah, he relates how it feels to be leaving the earth. And there's a family. There's Kate, and she's with the rest of the family there. And there's Bessie and Talbot and Ernie and Montague and Helen. This is a very interesting picture we have. We have some of them itemized or identified, but we think it's at the LittleCote at the back of the property, and we think it's a church group. We're not sure what it is, but it looks like it might be a church group, and but most of it is identified, and we're quite lucky to have all the names. And there's the Women's Auxiliary, which Granny was very involved in. She was involved in a lot of things in the community, and she got a lot of recognition for different things she did in the community. And we have some of the accolades that she has received. There's a stained glass window dedicated to Granny by Leo Mall. She was a very, very heavy supporter. In fact, we have a Bible sitting on the table there. It was 1909, and it was her Sunday school class that gave it to her, and we have it sitting on the table for a display.
We don't have the Leo Mall.
And there's Home Vialoux, who was very involved with Winnipeg Hydro. And there's a picture there at Great Falls. He was instrumental in building the dam at Great Falls, and he never had any children. And there we are up at Bissett and my mother is a Jackman, the Jackman family from Charleswood. I think a lot of you probably know George Jackman when he was alive. And but there's my granny. She came up to Bissett to visit us all the time. All we had was bush planes at that time, no road, and so she flew in all the time to visit us, and we had a very, very strong relationship with Granny. There's my brothers and myself out in the bush enjoying hunting. And there we are up in Bissett, and there's Jim and myself and my Joanne Vialoux from Charleswood and Donnie from Charleswood, and then Ronnie and Billy, my other brothers. The Vialoux family always come up to Bissett. And there's all of us brothers, my brothers. One has passed away, Bill has passed away now. Now we get into Ernie and Agnes. And she was a Kernahan, and they had Donnie and Joanne and Bobby and Helen. They had 4 children, and they're all still alive. And Ernie is a legend in Charleswood. We got some more on him. Ernie was very involved in the Masons and the Shriners, And he was very involved in politics. He was deputy mayor of Charleswood for years. And him and Art Moog were the best of buddies. No, he was, he did a lot for Charleswood. There's the house that he built right next to Granny's house on Vialoux Drive. That was the Vialoux property, so he built it right next door to Granny's. And there's, when the Second World War ended, Ernie built the Vialoux electric store. He had an electrical business, but he built a store, and it had a shop down in the basement where he did all the electrical stuff. But the store had all appliances, and after the Second World War, everybody was coming back, and they all wanted appliances, and he had a General Electric franchise, and he sold one heck of a pile of stuff there. I don't think he made any money, but anyways, the woman in there that looked after the store, and she was the salesperson and the secretary and everything for Ernie, and I think you all know who she is, and that was Marge Eady, one of the most famous curlers, golfers, and she is Canadian famous. She is, and I still remember whenever we went to the store, how Marge treated us. Yeah, and there's Ernie with his politics. There he is with the Conservative Election Committee for Sterling Lyon before he got in as premier. And they're all named. And then he, okay, he was on a member of the Charleswood Curling Club. He was, what else have they got here? Scottish Rite. No, Ernie was quite a character. He was a real character. Yeah, and Charleswood Historical is largest in Winnipeg. Ernie was first president of the Charleswood Historical Society. And there's his mother, Granny, and she was also very famous in Charleswood. And there's his daughter, or her daughter, Bessie, which is Ernie's sister, and she looked after Granny. She never married for years. She married late in life, and she married Alf Chapman. And then after Alf passed away, she connected up with Bill Eady, because Marge Eady had passed away already. So Bessie and Bill Eady connected up, and they had a very good relationship together, because they were both, and there she is with Alf Chapman, and there she is with Bill Eady. And both of them had a big impact on her life, but she looked after Granny till she passed away, and she never bothered with men till later on in life. And then the LittleCote, which is there right now, very sad. We had to sell it after Bessie passed away, but it has been transformed into a beautiful, beautiful home now, which I've had a tour of it, and I think it's very, very nice to see what they've done with it. And then we had a reunion at Charleswood Hotel in 1984, and that's all the Vialoux family. All those little kids are all grown up now, and all those parents are all got gray hair. Like, things have changed. And then at my house, I live out in Bel Air, and I had a family reunion in 2006, and that's most of the family that are offspring from the Vialoux family. There's the Vialoux house after, oh, this is before the transformation. Or after. No, this is after, yeah.
And now the Chapmans.
Oh, and we have the Chapmans.
Very, very nicely done.
And that's all we have.
How about questions?
Anybody got any questions? Okay, we have one.
I missed earlier, where was LittleCote?
On Vialoux Drive,
It is, okay.
it used to be Princeton Street,
Yeah.
and then they put Vialoux Drive in and they changed the address, but it was Princeton Street before. And they live right next door to the Parkin family. And Mrs. Parkin was a chaplain. I still remember Iris Parkin getting mad at me when I was about 12 and she was about 18. I remember her.
When did you operate the hotel Bissett?
Oh, I had the hotel in Bissett for 75 to 78.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I left there, and then I bought the Birchwood Hotel out at the beach, and I ran that for 25 years. Yeah, and now I just got a gigolo business. That's all I do now.
One of the things that I remember so well about Ernie Vialoux was at the same time he was both on the school board and on the Charleswood Council. A very unique situation. I don't know if anybody else in Manitoba ever had those two positions at the same time.
Well, I remember they used to talk about him and Art Moog, and they would all go to the Charleswood Hotel every morning for coffee, and they had a certain table, they all sat around, and I guess that's where all the politics was done every morning at the Charleswood Hotel. And then Ernie, I still remember Black Cat cork cigarettes. He had a cigarette sticking out of his mouth the whole time he was alive. It was unreal. But I also remember going to see him in the hospital when he was on his last legs. And I went in the hospital room, and there was a couple other guys in the room, and he just says, "There is the only Vialoux that's going to be on my on my funeral." He says, "That's the only one I want." So I was a pallbearer for Ernie Vialoux, which was very, very, very proud to be that. Any other questions?
I don't think you said where the Hermitage was located near Headingley. Is it right on Roblin Boulevard, or?
It's right on Roblin Boulevard, yes. In fact, it's gone, somebody bought it and they rebuilt a home there. And the Halls never lived in that home. But now that has been torn down and there's a monster big home. It's just kitty corner to Hall Street.
Okay.
When it comes onto Roblin Boulevard, and it's on the curve there, on the river.
Right.
And it's a monster house. Yeah, things are changing.
There's a plaque that's down by the river that honors the Hermitage.
Yeah, they have a subdivision down there, and remembers the Hermitage. Or Hermitage, some people call it. Okay, any other questions?
Where P lives.
Hey.
Thank you so much. That was just another wonderful presentation. We've had two such lovely ones here tonight.
Phenomenal.
And it's so nice that, both families just appeared to enjoy doing these presentations and all the work it took, and we really appreciate it. And both families have all sorts of family members in the audience tonight. So thank you all for coming. And please stay for refreshments after and mingle about. Thank you.
He's not done. He's got one more comment.
Oh.
I want to recognize Helen and Pam. Pam's not here tonight, but Helen and Pam were very instrumental in getting all this done. And I want to thank Len for helping with the
It's a pleasure.
And could I just mention? Oh, okay. All right. Our next Heritage Lecture is on October 19th, which is a Monday. Early farming community in Charleswood, the Overwaters and Kuipers. Thank you.
Good.
And could we get some lights on so people can see a bit better? If someone just flips on the other lights at the back.
Overwalk,
be great.
isn't that the one in Selkirk that you connected me to? What's her name? You went to me
Oh, yeah.
Okay, careful.
How much this young lady involved in
So I'm going to try and just get a little bit of this because it's so beautiful.
Pictures down there too.
Yes, I see. They didn't all fit? Beautiful. I'll get this one. That's so beautiful. Okay, I'm just taking a couple of shots here of how beautiful this is, and then you can get in close. Good. Just finishing this off. Oh, look at the sword. Wow. Isn't that beautiful? I'm not sure what this is.
I might be wrong. I think it's my grandfather,
Yeah.
Monty Vialoux.
Yes.
He was he never got it published.
Okay.
He got sent his old age. Nice.
Oh, there's the Bible. Wow. Could you just open the page of the Bible for me? It's beautiful. Yeah, just turn it, see if maybe there's an inscription in there. Do they, inside page, sometimes there's an inscription. Ah. What, 19, can't see the date, can you?
21. 1921.
21. Beautiful. And this is the one he talked about, given to volunteers. Yeah. Oh, isn't that beautiful? Oh, and I'm going to finish off with this, the election piece. And Hugh Popham, a damn coming fellow. Just beautiful. Coming through.